Before we jump in, we want to apologize for the late release of this episode. Some playoff games discussed have already wrapped up, but we still wanted to share the conversation with you. Thank you for listening.
What up, Derek?
Derek's not here today.
Whoa. You're not Derek.
No, I'm not Derek.
What are you doing here?
Well, I'm here because we had to change our schedule, and the time that we had to record, it would have just been you, Han Solo.
Ooh.
And I thought I'd join you, and maybe you can teach me stuff about sports.
Ooh, okay.
So, also,
are you ready?
Also, we're talking baseball and softball, and who doesn't love that?
I could name a few people, but not me.
Not me either.
I like baseball and softball. Are you ready for this? Do you think you're up for the challenge?
Hey, I guess we're gonna find out. Well, who's manning the soundboard?
Do we have Dominic the intern back?
We do have Dominic.
Can
I like how you call him Dominic
guys.
the intern. Do you mind that we call you Dominic
We
the
have
intern?
to call him that.
Yeah, I don't really care.
I am Butler Eagles sports writer Derek Pida, and here with me today are fellow sports writer Brendan Howe and Eagles sports editor Jake Murda Adams. This is season 2 of the Alter Eagles Eye on Sports.
Who doesn't care?
So,
All right.
have you ever heard of the show Pardon the Interruption?
Yeah.
One of their more famous bits is they had Stat Boy, who's been different people over time at ESPN, but they had someone called Stat Boy. And it started with Tony. The original one was Tony Reale, who went on to be the host of Around the Horn until last year.
Wow, fun facts.
Yep. And they would call him
like
Stat Boy
it.
because he was effectively an intern, and even at 27 years old was just one of the grunt workers, but they turned it into a bit. So he was Stat Boy.
Hey, we have all summer. We have all summer to do bits
Yeah.
with Dominic.
We do.
Good times.
Yeah.
And also, I think it makes sense because we're dropping this episode on Monday, and normally we drop our episodes on Thursday.
Yeah.
So tell us, why are we doing that? Tell the listeners why we're doing that.
We wanted to get something out before the district baseball and softball championships. There was a district championship last week, Karns City baseball, which won its second straight in Class 3A. But we have a bunch more in WPIAL District 9 and District 10 that we wanted to talk about today. We know at least who our teams are that are going to be there. In some cases, we're not going to know the opponent at the time of recording, but figured we should drop something ahead of that rather than dropping something after all of that is done and with not too much to talk about for a couple days or just in this weird space. So yeah, we've switched things up a little bit. Unfortunately, it meant Derek and Brendan couldn't join us today because they have to be out covering other stuff. But Derek, as we established in last week's episode, is at state track. At the time of this recording, he was on his way. Brendan
to Shippensburg, yeah.
Yep, Brendan is covering the Mars Boys and Girls Lacrosse District Championships as the boys go for their 10th straight title and the girls for their 4th. So they couldn't be here for the scheduled time, and I guess that's why you are in the captain's chair today.
Well, I'm not the captain today. You have to be the captain, even though I am sitting in Derek's chair.
Yeah. How's this going to work? Do you know about these? Have you been covering these teams? Has Dominic the intern been covering these teams?
Yeah, with
Every
all the
single
other
one.
things.
Okay,
Every
good.
single
Dominic's got us.
Yep.
I'm glad because I didn't prepare.
With all the other things that I'm doing. No, I haven't. Although I'm really excited about Butler baseball because they are the #1 overall seed in the WPIAL Class 6A.
Look at you.
And postseason, they relied heavily on historically dominant pitching staff. That's right.
They did.
I did some research. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but
It's like you're trying to be an SNL character trying to be someone who is pretending to be a broadcaster.
That's
it's
exactly
like
what I'm
4
doing.
degrees of separation.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Like I felt like I needed to wear kind of like a blazer. I almost wore a tie today. I was like, that's going too far.
You have to have Air Force Ones or Jordans on. That is the broadcaster look now.
Oh my gosh, I could have worn Nikes.
You got the blazer. You don't need a tie with it. You got like a semi-casual shirt underneath. And
a bumblebee pin.
And a bumblebee pin.
But that has to do with sports.
The AF1s. That's basically it.
Bumblebees are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And sports is necessary.
What is you are hamming it up.
I really don't know.
5 minutes.
I don't really know what I'm supposed to say here. But anyways, yeah.
We're gonna start with Butler baseball. They're playing North Allegheny this week. It's
rivals.
yeah.
They were when I was there. Okay.
Another thing off the top of the show is we don't know the sites and times, or we know the sites. We don't know the time and date for some of these WPIAL championships because by the time we were recording, they are not out yet.
Okay.
They will drop sometime by WPIAL on Friday. It could be in the morning or early afternoon. It kind of depends on when they get everything sorted out. So we can't tell you today on the show what that looks like. By the time you hear this, you will probably already know, but we can talk about what these matchups look like a little bit. And yeah, we're starting with Butler baseball, which has kind of been a story we've talked about for much of this season, either on the show or at butlereagle.com or in the Butler Eagle newspaper every day. They went from being a team that's like, oh, we know they have two really good pitchers at the start of the season to, oh, this team's really good. And it's been...
That's rare, though, isn't it, to have two, you think, on a team?
Yeah, it's such a... Like, this is a cheat code for so many reasons. And we kind of talked about this a week or two ago on the show. This teams that I've covered over the years, and that's mostly outside of Butler County, if you have two starting pitchers who can pitch the way Nolan Stefanik and Kyle Castile can, and I don't know if I've seen a better 1-2 combo, at least in a team in a coverage area I've been in, because both of them are going to Division I schools. They both had MLB scouts looking at them. It's probably still a long shot they get drafted, but the fact that scouts are looking at both of them is incredibly rare, and especially in an area like this. The reason why it's such a cheat code is because the way playoffs are set up is usually it's only 2 games a week at most. So you can line up your number 1 or your 1A in the case of Butler and your 1B on both days, and as long as they do their job, which these guys have done all season, you're golden. Like they're going to give up maybe 1 run, maybe 2 if they're having a bad day. And if your offense can score 3 runs, like that's it. And a lot of teams that get to the playoffs and get to this point might have one workhorse type ace like that on their lineup. But then once they get into day 2 of that playoff week, do they have a guy that's strong enough to kind of get them back to day 3? And I've seen teams that will take their true ace and hold them for the second game of the playoffs to hope that they can win that first game. And it's a gamble because they're basically saying, we're gonna trust our less experienced pitchers and therefore the rest of the team to pick that person up to get us to day 2, because there is no coming back from day 1 in almost every district playoff. You lose the first round, whether it's quarterfinals, a true first round, whatever, it's over. So you might never see your ace pitch if you go with that strategy. I've seen teams lose that way, but it can also pay off quite well because you win that first game, you set yourself up for that second game. You have an automatic leg up, because you now have your best player pitching in the quarterfinals maybe. Yeah. And then you do the same thing for the semifinals and final. You're gambling again that someone else is going to be able to get you through the semifinals just enough to get your ace on the mound for the championship. Because if you have your ace on the mound for the championship, most teams are not going to have their ace on the mound. So you are trying to basically turn things on its head a little bit. Butler doesn't need to play that game.
Yeah, because having 2 of them, that's what I was just going to say. How often... And you said before we started that you've been in the office a lot. So you haven't seen a lot of these games leading up to this. But how is Butler doing that where they're both getting playing time? I mean, are they just switching per inning? Like
No, it's the way.
How do they do that? So they both,
Stefanik pitched the first game, or actually, no, they didn't play a first round game in the playoffs in 6A. The way that they usually are able to go is both of these guys are pitching complete games. Earlier in the season, they were going like 5-6 innings, but then as they stretched out a little bit, they were able to get to 6 and 7 pretty consistently. So basically, it's just throw Nolan Stefanik out there for 1 game, and he's good, and you get through all 7 innings, and go to Kyle Castile in the next game, and he'll get through 7 innings. They actually had to play in an extra innings game, and I have to correct myself again. They played 2 playoff games already. I'm like spazzed here a little bit. I'm not used to being the baseball expert on a show with these 2 guys that are usually next to me. They beat
He has me today.
Yeah, they beat Mount Lebanon in the first game, and then they just crushed Norwin on Wednesday night 9-3 in a game that wasn't really competitive. And what they actually had to do in that Mount Lebanon game was throw Nolan Stefanik out for 7 innings. He actually got to 8, and then they had to bring in Kyle Castile for 1 inning. But because of the way the pitch count rules work in PIAA and largely most of the country, as long as he doesn't hit a certain number of pitches in that game, because of the distance between the first game and the second, he's good to go. So they actually kind of got lucky that game went to extras, and he only had to throw 1 in. Yeah, there's a lot.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Because they have to protect arms and everything. Whereas softball, you don't have a pitch count limit.
Okay.
So
why is that? Because I think women can't handle it. I'm just kidding.
No, it's
kind of not.
It's all about the biomechanics of it. Throwing overhand is a lot more
overhand and under.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not to
I
say
don't know. Have you seen those girls whip their arm around?
And so that's what I was gonna say. It's not to say that
and
they
then
don't get tired.
The aim,
but with a 2 or 3 day gap, your best pitchers should be able to handle every single game of a postseason.
Okay.
And we'll talk about one of them coming up here in a little bit. But for the most part in softball, if you have one true ace, you can ride that girl for most of the season. And what a team will do is just kind of rest them in either like blowout games where they're already up big, or they might sit them for an entire game against a weaker opponent and just be like, yeah, we don't need you here. Let's give someone else, like, let's give you rest. Let's give someone else, some innings to work with a little bit. Or it might just be an actual fatigue thing. It's like, we want to rest you because you're not feeling your best and we'd rather not, make this any worse. But baseball doesn't work that way. So they have to, the fact that they have two pitchers of this caliber, like, could honestly carry them to a state final. Like when we started to see how this was going in late April, I was like, this team looks legit because all they have to do is put up 3-4 runs a game and it's over.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and like we have here in our notes, one pitcher throwing in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say hitting 90s, that's like, so they're almost unhittable. What's the percentage of a game that they're throwing 90s? Like,
these guys are probably doing it maybe half the time. Like,
okay.
they've started to creep up into the mid 90s from what Brendan has told us before. And that's a big deal for college and pro scouts. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing they don't always hit that number because at this age, it's still kind of tough to do that. Mm-hmm. But 10 years ago, you didn't see too many high school pitchers who could even hit 90. And now there's increasingly more that can flirt with that number. Or in this case, these guys are throwing, like I said, 94 or 95 on some occasions. They're probably sitting more like 91, 92 a little bit more consistently. So that means some of those pitchers are going to be 87, 88. But you don't see too many teams with two fireballers like this. And they also demonstrate some pretty good accuracy too. So it's not like they're
That's
just
what I was going to ask. Like, other than like the velocity, what makes a pitcher like difficult to hit? You were just saying accuracy, obviously. At
this level, if they can spot their pitches like on the corners, it's so tough. Like, if they got a fastball that goes in the 90s at all, most hitters, especially at the bottom of the lineup, can't keep up with that. The best hitters will be able to because they've been training against those kinds of guys before. But then if you are able to hit, inside, outside corner or just go off a little bit and get guys to chase, it's so tough for a high school hitter with the timing of everything to be able to track some of that stuff. So it's why, like, I think Butler is like so well positioned to make a huge run with this. If they win this game, this final, they're in the state playoffs. WPIAL only sends 1 out of 6A. They're in such good shape because the state playoffs, especially at the 6A level, can be so much of this like 3-1, 3-2 kind of baseball. Mm-hmm. And they can do that every single game. They're like, as long as neither one of those guys has a bad day and the offense does enough, that's the recipe for success at this level. Okay,
so pressure on opposing lineups mentally.
Yeah.
And I was talking about mentality, a little bit of that, or I haven't talked about that yet. Like what my coach used to tell me, running, which I don't know how it is in baseball because I never played baseball and I didn't play softball. But obviously practice, preparation, everything they're doing before the game matters, right, for preparing themselves. But once you get to a game, it's like 90% of what you're doing is mental because you've already worked on the physical part. So knowing that they may only get 2 or 3 real chances all game, like, what do you think? How much pressure do you think these teams are feeling?
If I'm a
just
coach,
knowing that.
Yeah, if I'm a coach for the opposing team facing these guys, I am preaching to, especially my best hitters, you have to find the mistake and you have to capitalize because you will not probably get another mistake. Now, you're crossing your fingers that you just run into a lucky day where Nolan's just off or Kyle's just off. But we've seen most of this year, they haven't really been that. These guys have allowed like 3 or 4 combined runs.
Knocking on wood here because I'm a Butler.
Their ERAs are crazy low. They're both under 1, which it goes back to what I said. Like, having 2 pitchers that are this dominant is just super rare. But if I'm the opposing coaches, I'm telling especially my best hitters, you have to sit fastball. You have to look for breaking stuff that's going to just be over the heart of the plate. And if they make a mistake, you have to make sure you capitalize. Because if you don't, they're probably not making a mistake again to you the rest of that at bat, and you're going down. your weaker hitters,
I was going to say, go ahead with that, still continuing that.
The weaker hitters in your lineup, you're just hoping that they present challenging at bats. Like, you want to work the count a little bit. Instead of going down on 2 or 3 pitches, grounding out into something soft, try to see if you can make these guys throw a couple extra pitches. Get them to 6 or 7 in that at bat and run their pitch count up a little bit more. The more that pitch count rises, the earlier they might get knocked out. One of the things that makes these guys so elite is the fact that they're able to pitch complete games all the time, and that requires them to keep their pitch count low, which at the high school level, they have to come out after 100 pitches, which most of these kinds of aces are going to be able to get under within 7 innings. They're usually averaging like 10 to 12 pitches an inning, so that's easy to get under 100 pitches. But I'm going to tell like my 7, 8, 9 hitters, be patient, make them work, try to draw this, if you could work a walk or you can work just a seeing eye single, that's great. Like anything you get from your bottom of the lineup is just going to be icing on the cake. But you want them to work a longer pitch count if they can. That's what I'm telling my lineup. And just cross your and then on the other side of it, you need your defense and your pitcher to be on their game, because, like I said, if Butler gets 2-3 runs, that could be it.
Yeah. Well, what's Butler's weaknesses?
I look at this as like a relatively complete team. Their lineup isn't totally top to bottom great. They have, like, when you get down to the bottom half of the order or maybe bottom third, there are guys that can be exploited at this kind of level, and that's by no means a shot at Butler. That's just where we are right now.
Yes.
It's really,
it says you only have 3 full-time starters hitting over average 300.
Over 300, which is like, for a team of this caliber, it's a little bit weak, but they make up for it. They just seem to capitalize on stuff. Like, they're scoring, like, despite the fact that their batting average is not what I would consider super high for a team, they're still scoring a ton of runs, which means when they get guys on, they're making the other team pay. And again, not from having not seen this team play at all this year, but hearing Brendan and Derek and John talk about them a little bit, you can kind of put together some information just tangentially a little bit here. And it's, these guys make it count when they need to, even if they're not getting on base a ton. They're still just and they have some guys that hit home runs. In the semifinal on Wednesday, Nolan Stefanik, they had 2 home runs in the first inning. They went down 1-0. Kyle Castillo actually gave up a run, which was kind of rare for him. And so Butler trailed in the bottom of the first inning and immediately erased it. First kid at bat goes up and homers, hits a solo home run to tie the game. And then a couple batters later, Nolan Stefanik, who is by no means a slouch with the bat in his hands, hit the 3-run bomb, game over. They ended up winning 9-3. Like, Norwin didn't really have a chance after that.
Yeah.
It's like, when they have chances, they're making other teams pay. If they continue to do that, like I said, with the pitching they have, this team is nearly unstoppable. But if they run into a pitcher that can keep them to a run, and it's anyone's game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, their bats have to stay hot.
Yeah.
And then they're unstoppable. They're almost dangerous in a way. But yeah. I was going to ask you too, like, how important is, and I love when I watch a game and the outfielders, and the basemen, like, they're just obviously as important, right? Yeah. How strong is that part of
this team has been, from what I can tell, this team has been pretty solid defensively. And when Castile and Stefanik are not striking guys out, which they're averaging like more than a strikeout per inning, which is really good at this level, this defense doesn't make too many mistakes. And you can see that too by just the way they've been kind of winning. I don't think we touched on this yet. They've won 5 games by shutout in their last 12, which is pretty solid. I mean, some of those are against some teams that are a little bit on the weaker side. So like, you're going to beat up on some of those lower teams, but they've also beaten some teams pretty handily by shutout. I think Seneca Valley was one of them in the later half of the season. And like I said, they've won 12 straight. So like, this team is complete in so many ways. They're going to make some errors here. They're high school kids. Someone's going to get a little bit anxious or nervous at some point here, whether at the WPIAL championships or if they win and they get to states, the stage gets a little bit more nerve wracking. Someone's going to mess up, but for the most part, this is a team that doesn't make too many mistakes.
Yeah. All right. Opposition.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be kind of interesting. This is a matchup in which the teams know each other. They're WPIAL section rivals, so they have to face each other in a 3-game series during the year. Butler is 2-1 against them. The only time they lost in that 3-game series, and I think it was like the week of April 8th or something like that, Castile and Stefanik had already pitched that week in the first 2 games of the series, so Butler was throwing out its 3rd, 4th, and 5th guys in the rotation, and that's when North Allegheny was able to win one. But against Castile and Stefanik, it wasn't all that close. Butler won those games fairly handily.
Yeah.
At the plate, the Tigers are led by sophomore Nate Fritz. He's hitting .400. He's scored 12 runs and he has 5 RBIs. So the fact that their best hitter doesn't have a ton of runs contributed in one way or the other kind of tells me this is a team that doesn't have a ton of pop, and you can see that in some of their scoring numbers. Like, they're not a team that runs the scoreboard up too often, and that's going to play to Butler's advantage even more. They got elite pitching going up against an offense that is not exactly potent, especially from top to bottom. And again, like I keep saying this, Butler gets 3 to 4 runs. I think this game is pretty much over. It is worth mentioning with Fritz, especially as being a sophomore, he was probably one of the few who had like sustained success against Butler in that series. He went hitless in the first game, but he did finish with 4 hits in total, and his only triple of the season came in, I believe, the series finale against Butler. If you look at the mound, they're led by Lucas Cooper. He's going to be the ace going for them. He was 6-2 so far this season. He's got a 1.12 ERA, so he's been good. 45 strikeouts in 43 2/3 innings, but he did give up 3 runs. One of them earned in 3.2 innings against Butler in the opener of that series. So they got to him a little bit. I don't know why he got pulled that early. Obviously didn't cover that game, but they've seen him before. They've had some success against him. I don't see any reason why they won't be able to do something similar against him this week.
Yeah, and anyone who's illiterate like I was on baseball terminology before this conversation, ERA is an earned run average, and a lower number is more elite.
Look at you learning.
Do. I had to look it up because I'm like, there's all these acronyms, and I hear these things. And listen, I love going to baseball. When I lived in New York, my friend had bleacher seats. It was at the old Yankee Stadium, so we were bleacher creatures, and it was so much. It was like $15.
Yeah.
You know, we'd go to a bar across the street beforehand. Everybody's loading in the train from the city. We would go to these games, and they'd be saying, I was like, oh, yeah, I had no idea what they were talking about. They'd be like, oh, yeah, wow. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's a good batting average. I'm like, I only know that because it's a high number, but I don't know why. So I looked it up today.
I used to keep a box score at Phillies games when I was like 6 years old.
Oh.
My parents were. It wasn't really something they made me do. I just like did it. I knew baseball through them, and yeah. Baseball's such a numbers game.
I do have I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. I got some stuff, but we'll get to that. Okay, so I'm feeling like your prediction's Butler.
Yeah.
What's your predicted score though? Do you have a predicted score?
I'm going to guess it's 6-2. That's what I have written down. I don't think North Allegheny gets more than 2 runs in this game.
Okay.
And even if they do, like we've seen, Norman did it in the semifinals. They got 3, but it was 3 that were too little, too late. Butler's going to put up enough against this offense.
Norwin. Sorry, Norwin.
North Allegheny.
Not sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Butler wins its first district championship here, and that's going to be like kind of the story of the postseason for us.
Okay, so you know when the Phillies were formed, right? Do you know what year they were formed? That's not the question, but
yeah,
it could be fun to
1882?
83. They are the oldest continuous one-name, one-city franchise. Yep. What were the Phillies originally known as? They didn't officially adopt the Phillies until 1890. But before that, what were they originally known as?
I didn't realize it was 7 years. I thought it was a little bit longer than that. The Athletics were not them. That was the other team in town that came a little bit later. The Grays were the Negro League team that came along.
And there was a weird time during the 40s from 43 to 49 where they would get like the nickname the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
But the Phillies always remained on their uniforms, but there was like that weird period where that happened.
I think it was a change of ownership too.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm saying a bunch of things, but what were the Phillies originally known as?
You're going to tell me and I'm going to kick myself because
Get ready to either hit the trombone if he gets it wrong or the applause. Let's see what happens here.
It wasn't the Braves because a few teams have had that name, but it was not them. I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to say the Generals, and I know it's wrong, but I need to get a guess out there.
You want me to tell you?
Like I said, I'm going to kick myself when you tell me.
The Quakers.
It was the Quakers.
Oh my gosh, I just stumped Jake on the Phillies.
I knew, like I said.
I thought you would have known that.
Once you told me, I was like, yeah, of course. I've heard that before.
I genuinely was like, he's going to know this. This is going to be an easy question.
And the reason why it's a little bit more difficult is because that's from the first 7 years, 140 years ago.
True.
Like they've been known as the Phillies for the vast majority. But no, I know that question. I know that answer, and I don't know why I got stumped by it. But
All right.
good job.
Thank you. I tried, first time doing that. Fun times. Yay. I feel like I want to do that every week with all of you and just be like, boom, 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 all three.
You be the trivia master.
We should do a Triple Crown week.
Okay.
All right. So other
Sports
district
Jeopardy.
championship games. Moving into that.
Thanks, Laura. I'm in parts unknown here after we found out Moniteau will take on Redbank Valley in the District 9 Class 2A Baseball Championship. It's the 2-1 seed at 11 a.m. on Monday at Du Bois Showers Field. Redbank Valley beat number 5 Kane 2-1. Moniteau was a 5-3 winner over Kerwinsville in the district semifinals last week. Moniteau enters this game having split the season series with Redbank Valley, winning the season opener 10-4, which you got to take with a grain of salt because a lot of teams are still shuffling around their starting pitchers, not extending them too long. The lineups might not be set yet, but they lost the mid-season game 3-1, so this is a little bit more of an even matchup, it appears, than maybe that March game might suggest. Moniteau is a team that doesn't win with power in its lineup. They have 22 doubles, a couple home runs, but they kind of get by just getting guys on base, forcing the other team into errors, and letting Dawson cook. The senior has an electric 396 batting average, 19 runs scored, 15 RBIs. That batting average actually dropped a little bit in the district semifinals from 408. He only went, I kid here, 1 for 4. But he's also the unquestioned ace of this rotation. 58 2/3 innings, 1.43 ERA, which I will kid again, went up a little bit after that district semifinal because, wow, he gave up a total of 3 runs against Kerwinsville and was originally at a 1.22 ERA, but he's still been dynamite all season. 7-1 record going into this game, 83 strikeouts. I'd expect him to pitch on Monday with 4 days rest in between the semifinal and final. He went the distance in that semifinal with 9 Ks and 4 hits allowed. Like I said, those 3 runs also allowed in that one. But the game was relatively over by the time he gave up runs 2 and 3. Moniteau was leading 5-1 at that point entering the 6th inning, so he was kind of able to coast a little bit. Looking at Redbank Valley here, everything kind of starts and finishes with the combo of Braylon Wagner and Jackson Huffman. Braylon's a little bit more of the better hitter here, 468 average, 22 runs scored, 27 RBIs, and 11 extra base hits. Jackson Huffman, meanwhile, at the plate is 359 batting average with 18 runs, 22 RBIs, and he's got the team's only home run, which takes me to, I was talking about Moniteau not being quite as good with the power, but Redbank Valley even less so. They have a few less extra base hits, only 1 home run on the season, but they do hit for contact, and when they get on base, guys are flying around the base paths. 4 hitters are hitting over 330 entering this game, according to Max Preps, and they have 77 stolen bases, which is nearly 4 per game. They actually had 4 in that season opener against Moniteau. According to Game Changer, they didn't have any in the second matchup, which is kind of interesting, but still a very dangerous lineup. It's going to be on Cook to not let anyone get on base, because if they do, they can put pressure on a pitcher and on a defense. Speaking of the rotation, again, Redbank Valley's rotation also consists mainly of Huffman and Wagner. Those two have been very good this season for them, carrying the bulk of the innings. Huffman a little bit better as a pitcher. He is 5-1 with 74 strikeouts and a 1.48 ERA in 52 innings pitched. But Wagner's not too shabby either. 1.78 ERA, 5-3 record, 56 strikeouts in 39.1 innings. I'm not quite sure who would pitch in this game against Moniteau. I would have to assume it's Cook going for Moniteau. He's pitched basically every game for the last couple of weeks because of the way the schedules have been spread out. But if you also want to look at how these two might stack up against Moniteau specifically, Wagner is 2 for 5 so far this season in the 2 games, 2 runs and an RBI against the Warriors, and Huffman is 2 for 6 with a run and 2 RBIs this season. He also pitched the majority of that second game, which is the one I'm going to take a little bit more seriously than that season opener, like I said. He pitched 6 innings in relief of Wagner, who actually exited the game in the first inning, having allowed a run. Huffman closed the door, striking out 8 and 6 relief innings and getting the win in that one. So something to watch for here. Both those pitchers very good. This should be kind of an interesting game, in my opinion. Neither team is like totally electric scoring. They're not going to put up crooked numbers on the scoreboard most games, but they have a pitcher, at least one pitcher on each team, who's quite capable of keeping an opposing lineup to like 3 runs or less. So
I think this is going to be, if this had been another matchup for Moniteau, I probably would have favored the Warriors. I might give a slight edge to Redbank Valley in this one just because they have two workhorse pitchers who they can lean on either one if one of them struggling a little bit early on. But even if they don't have to, I think just the pressure they put on with base runners can be a little bit much for a team like Moniteau to maybe contend with. I could be wrong. I think this is a little bit of a coin flip game, but if you had to kind of water gun to the toe here or something, I'd give Redbank Valley just a slight edge in this one and see where it goes from there. But I can't rule out Moniteau. There's a very good chance they could win this game, and it should be a good game, the kind you want to see in a district championship.
And we're going to move on to softball now. All right, number 1 Karns City versus number 2 St. Mary's in District 9 Class 3A final.
Yep.
That's Monday at Dubois. Is it Heindel Field?
I believe it's Heindel Field.
Heindel. We used to always say Dubois. Dubois.
We like to say that too. Sometimes.
I like to say that. So for anyone listening, Dubois. Heindel Field. Okay. So Jake, talk to us.
This team runs through Nicole Huff, Karns City, that is. I believe she is either closing in or maybe she actually did break their career home run record. We had done a story on that earlier in the season. She's got 5 of them so far this season. I think she had 12 or 13 going into this year as well, and the record was somewhere around 17 or 18. She's hitting .525, 32 runs scored, 32 RBIs, and she's also got 12 extra base hits. She leads an offense that is hitting .329 and averaging 8.8 runs this season per game. They also have 15 home runs, as mentioned, led by her 5. In the circle, Addison Burrows and Abigail Dunlap make up the majority of the rotation. They've seen the most innings with a combined 119 strikeouts. Dunlap has 75 of those. She's a little bit more of a strikeout artist, but I believe Burrows' ERA was a little bit on the lower end. Both of them have a combined 3.26 ERA. So this is a team that has enough pop to be able to get some runs across most games, and their pitching staff does enough that it's not exactly going to be shutouts the way we talked about with Butler baseball, but usually keeps teams in check. I like Karns City in this one too, like just the way that their team is kind of well-rounded.
Yeah. What's the scouting report on St. Mary's?
Addison Beimel is probably their best player. She's hitting .466 with 4 home runs, 22 RBIs, or 22 runs scored and 15 RBIs. Molly Hansloven is hitting .370 with 5 home runs and 21 runs and 15 RBIs. She leads both of them lead the Flying Dutchman here. So those are probably the two. When I looked at the rest of the lineup, they have some other capable hitters, but it's very clearly top end heavy with these two at near the top of the lineup.
Yeah, and we're talking about over 500 batting averages, right? So, again, another little explanation here. So that means that players are getting hits literally more than half the time that they come to the plate. That's insane consistency. Honestly, in my brain, what can you tell me about Karns City's lineup? Wait, did I do that right? No.
Yep.
Yes. Let me do that again.
Yep. That's why I didn't say anything.
I knew you, because I'm like,
I knew you were going to hit that.
Well, the white is like, it's so bright, So I'm like looking at it with the lights. I don't know how you guys look at these and those whenever. Yes. See, I should do that. I do it on the other thing. Anyways, doesn't matter. All right. So when we're talking about batting averages over a 500 average, that means that these players are they're getting hits literally more than half the time that they come to the plate. So that's insane consistency. That's insane to me. What can you tell me about Karns City's lineup?
If you think that's insane consistency, I got some breaking news for you here, and it's usually when you get to the stage of the playoffs, there's a couple players on many lineups that should be hitting 500 or more. I actually think incredible for a softball player is 600 or so, and I've seen that once or twice. It's not too often. Okay. So this is a good sign for Karns City. They have one of the better hitters in the area hitting over 500. A couple more, I believe, are hitting over 400, and so this is kind of normal, I guess. This is a decent lineup from what I can tell. They have some more pop than I would expect from a 3A team, like I mentioned. 15 home runs for the season for the entire group is pretty solid. I think there's some teams out there that might have closer to 20 in some cases, but at the high school level, you don't see a ton of home runs. But it's a good lineup. I think especially Addison, combines a good bit of power with batting average. Obviously, I mean, those numbers speak for themselves. Yeah. But she's dangerous, and yet teams don't pitch around her a ton. They do a little bit, it seems. She does have a decent walk rate, but she gets a lot of opportunities, and she makes teams pay for it.
Okay, I like that. All right, moving on. Seneca Valley versus Hempfield in the WPIAL Class 6A final. That's at California PA Lilly Field. All right, so Hempfield has won 2 of the last 3 WPIAL titles, both in one-run games over Seneca. So that feels like some unfinished business for the Raiders. Can the Raiders finally get over the hump?
This would be such an interesting storyline, and if we didn't have Butler baseball in its final and chasing its first district championship ever, this might have been the game we could have led with for this show. It'll be really interesting to see if Seneca Valley were to win this game, because for 4 years they had a girl by the name of Lexi Hames, who was our 2-time Butler Eagle Female Athlete of the Year. Phenomenal pitcher, phenomenal hitter. She's playing at Clemson right now and actually seeing some decent playing time as a freshman, which is really tough at the ACC level to do. And she was electric, but Hempfield, for whatever reason, had Seneca Valley's number with her in the lineup in the circle for those 4 years. I think they won the majority of the regular season games and then won those 2 district championships in 2025 and 2023 by 1 run each. I think one of them went to extra innings. And yeah, I think, and the only game, Seneca did win 1 title during that stretch with Lexi, but it was against Norwin. So they have not done this yet against Hempfield. So if they were to do it without her, would be really kind of interesting. And they do have one player who stepped up in many ways into Lexi's old shoes. She's not quite the same elite talent as Lexi is, but she's been really good. And I think we even talked about it in one of the preseason episodes of the shows, like who steps up for, Hames's position. And we got the answer. It ended up being pretty quick, but it was Abby Kokowski. And now, before we get into any more of her, the one additional thing I'll say is Hempfield and Seneca Valley play each other a bunch during the regular season. So these are teams that are very familiar with each other. The coaching staffs are very familiar with each other. Hempfield won both of the regular season games 5-2 and 4-3. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Kokowski's role was in that in a minute. But yeah, this is probably the most interesting game in terms of storylines out there, except for that Butler baseball one.
Yeah, and with Kokowski, right? We're talking about her strength also in batting.
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
So but also as a pitcher.
Yeah. Very
so
good.
She's really impacting every phase of this game. Someone that's producing almost every single time they step into the batter's box. So if this is a team that's, relied on one player, we just talked about Lexi Hames. Now we're talking about Kokowski. Who else can they lean on if Hempfield checks Kokowski?
Yeah. The answer to that question, and I'll circle back to the reason why, is probably Paige Voles. But to give some more context with Kokowski, she's a senior this year. She leads the team. We don't have full season stats for Seneca Valley, but at one point she basically led or was among the leaders on the team in runs, RBIs, home runs, and extra base hits while hitting .424, so close to that 500 average we were talking about with Karns City a minute ago. She is a really good pitcher. She's not nearly the strikeout artist that Lexi Hames was. Lexi could strike out like 2 girls an inning. Like, it was an incredible number even for softball standards. But she's been pretty darn good. She allowed 2 runs and 3 unearned in one of those games against the Raiders. The only time she did pitch, or against Hempfield, the only time she did pitch against them was once, and she got, I wouldn't say rocked, but she got banged up a little bit more than she has in most other games this season. But to circle back to Paige, she is probably the one that, especially in the lineup, needs to have a good game. One of the things that kind of undid Seneca Valley, in our opinions, in past years was they didn't have that other person that could kind of step up for Lexi Hames, because a lot of teams, especially Hempfield would love to pitch around her. They'd walk her a ton.
Yeah.
And
I remember her saying that when she came in here.
Like,
I always thought that was wild.
I think one of the district championships, I don't think she actually was allowed to even swing the bat. Like, they just walked her. They pitched around her all 4 times she was at the plate. And
how often are they allowed to do that? I mean,
whenever
is that
they want. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're allowed to do it whenever you want. It's all strategy.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
It's the Barry Bonds treatment. Barry Bonds used to get this in his heyday, and his like early 2000s steroids heyday, where like teams I think 2 or 3 times they walked him with the bases loaded.
Dominic's nodding his head over there. You concur.
Yeah.
Yes.
They walked him with the bases loaded because they're like, we'd rather just give them a run than potentially let him just crush one out of the park and 4 runs score. And that was the treatment Lexi Hames got. Kokowski doesn't get quite that kind of treatment, but they're still going to need someone else to step up for. And I think it's Paige She was averaging at one point, I don't know if she still is, over 500. She provides similar kind of pop with the bat as Kalkowski does. I don't think she has quite as many home runs, but it's up there. I think she was second on the team. So if they need someone to come up clutch, which is kind of what did them last year in the district championship, where Lexi was not the one at the plate in a crucial situation, like Paige is might have to be the one to do it. And again, it depends on where in the lineup they are at a given situation, but it's going to have to be, I think she's like the number 2 on this team.
Yeah. Do you think that past losses motivate a team?
Sure.
It becomes real mental baggage.
Yeah.
And I briefly mentioned it. I don't know what all I said earlier, but my track coach in college would always say like 90% physical, 10% mental in practice.
Mm-hmm.
He would say that. And then on race day, he'd say, all right, that's flipped now because you've done the work. Whatever work you've done, it's done. Mm-hmm. Now you show what you've worked for. So now it's 90% mental when you get to that starting line. I'm telling you, those 100 hurdles and even the 400 hurdles, it was absolutely mental.
Yeah.
There were so many races where I would just like psych myself out, especially when I was running against someone. There was an All-American I ran against at Slippery Rock, and every single time I had to run against her, I was terrified of her. She was a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. I can't remember her name, but
scary runners.
She just had this like, it was like she was mad. I'm like, maybe that's why she's so fat, like faster than me, because she's just mad. She looks mad. Maybe I need to get mad before I run. I would get serious. Anyways, I digress. I believe working hard and giving everything you can is really all you can rely on. So, what do you think about these past losses and these two teams, right? Especially.
I think the one thing that's going to be in Seneca Valley's favor is there's a bit of a new regime. Their head coach resigned at the end of last year. It was Lexi Hames' mom. She's following her daughter now around Clemson. Joe DeCristoforo, who's been in the program for a while as an assistant coach, he's now the head coach. So maybe a new voice might help a little bit. Some of these seniors were underclassmen and maybe either were playing or weren't playing when some of these losses were happening. So maybe they have a little bit of a fresh perspective, but there's still
animosity. I don't know. Just a little bit of, there's the rage that's use it.
I think both teams would tell you they don't really like hate each other because there's a lot of like players that play each other on like the club level.
Take it out on the ball. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, just taking it out on the ball. Sorry.
I do think Seneca Valley is going to be motivated by this, but Hempfield's obviously going to know this and is going to be prepared. It's a team that's won quite a bit. Some of these girls on the roster were part of those 2 earlier championships. I think this is going to break my I don't believe in momentum thing. I think there's a little bit more of it at the high school level than there is at the college or pro level. But if Seneca Valley gets up early, that's a huge boon for them.
Yes.
But if they fall behind early, like first, second inning, just get down by a run or 2, it could potentially
feel hard to catch up.
Yeah, it could feel a lot like, oh, here we go again.
Yes,
now that's not to say
sense.
if they get up early that they won't, like that Hempfield can't dig themselves out of that hole. Hempfield is a really, really good team for a reason, but I think just getting that early taste of success could be enough to be like the pressure gets released just a little bit, and you're not going into the 5th or 6th inning and you're still trailing by a run or you're still tied and it's like, oh, we got to get this one, and then everyone starts pressing a little bit more. If you can get just one run scratched across the board early, go up 1-0, that can do a world of difference later in the game. But I think that's gonna kind of be where it's critical. Is they need to get some success early on. If they don't, then I think that thought can start to creep into the back of their heads.
Yes. And we don't know when that game is?
No.
Okay.
Yet.
When will we know? Did you say?
We will know this weekend. So by the time this episode drops, it will.
The schedule will be out.
All of these championship games, times and locations will be set.
Will be set.
Yeah, we know the locations for all of them except for District 10. But we'll know everything else by the time this is out.
All right. Sounds like it's gonna be a good game. Lots of pressure. Lots of peaking at the right time. Some unfinished business happening here. I made a list of words.
Listeners don't want to go behind the curtain right now.
I made a list of words that kind of exemplified all the things that we just talked about, especially considering I'm like, I don't know who these people are, but good luck to all of you. I hope you do well. I'm coming into my little...
Dominic the intern. How would you grade Laura's performance today?
He doesn't want me to talk.
As a show host of sports that she is not totally well-versed in. It has an understanding of, but it had to learn some things today.
What's the ranking out of?
Let's do an ABC grade.
I think a solid B.
B? All right, good job.
Okay, thanks.
His word. It's not my word. I'm biased. It's
well,
his word.
because I can't be as conversational as Derek or Brendan could be, because you guys know these teams, you know these players, you're writing about them. And it definitely, it's a thing. I think what people need to understand from this is you guys do your work. I mean, they do their research, they do their work, they're doing everything. There's only 3 of them. And it's a lot of sports to cover. This is a lot. I mean, just understanding sports in general, sure. I can go to a baseball game and enjoy myself and know when something exciting happens and start cheering at the same time everyone else starts cheering.
Yeah.
The same with football. But every once in a while, I'm like, I don't know enough to just be able to talk about it. But I wish I did. But here
you
we
did a
are.
good job hosting.
I'm learning.
Since you took listeners behind the curtain, this is what was going on to prep for this show when we realized it was going to be Laura and I today at the table. Last night, I started writing down a bunch of notes, and I texted her and said, hey, like the document we have is starting to fill up, but I'm going to finish it tomorrow before the show because I need to see how some other things play out, and I had some other stuff to get done that night. She's like, okay, just send me like XYZ things. So I started working on it at about 11:30 noon today before we recorded the show, and all of a sudden I see Laura's in the file, and she's writing things out too. And some of the stuff she had asked me to get her or like to write out for her, she was already writing out. I was like, okay. Makes my life a little bit easier, but also like she's figuring it out. So that works for me. And I had to text her and be like, yeah, I think you're covered.
You're like, we're good.
Yeah.
Don't put anything else in there. Any more thoughts? Well, I definitely tried not to put, I only put that one that my track coach said to me.
Yeah.
Because obviously I was an athlete. I know what that's like and that pressure. And
Yeah.
I think what I'm interested in knowing more of, and I can, add something to you guys, maybe to one day have a conversation with some of these players and teams is what are they doing when it comes to that, like mental preparation?
Yeah.
Like, do they do anything extra or special? I don't know. I mean, I had a ritual, how I warmed up, what I wore to warm up. I was very specific, even into college, like what I was doing pre-run, what I was eating the night before. I mean, down to like everything. I could only usually eat spaghetti the night before. I was always eating pasta, red sauce with meat, always. But usually the morning of, I would be so nervous before a meet. I could only typically have a banana and oatmeal.
It's so interesting. No,
It's weird. It was like I was just terrified that I was gonna. I don't know. I don't know what it was about the eating. I was eating stuff like that.
I didn't compete at like anywhere near the same level as you in most of my, like I competed in college in bowling, but we were a club team. We were not going to compete against some of the big dogs. But to me, that was like my last athletic achievement, really. And the way you've described that to us, I think, or in some ways before, like the nerves that would kind of rattle you before any meet. And the way that I think about how I would enter stuff is like, yeah, I felt nerves and stuff too, but it was very different the way that I approach stuff as like more of an attacking mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you didn't, but like it sounds like the way that you describe stuff is definitely different than how I would get amped up before a game.
Yeah, it did depend. It depended how strong we felt as a team. Like obviously I was in 2 of the relays, but as an individual, I typically would come to the line, and it depended on how my training that week felt for that actual event.
Yeah.
And if I felt like this week sucked,
yeah,
I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel fast out of the blocks. I didn't feel solid over the hurdles. I just was in my head, and the 300 hurdles were the worst because I'd be on that back stretch, and you can hear people yelling from the other side, and you're like, I want everybody to be quiet. I wanted it to be like golf. I legit wanted everyone to shut up and stop talking so I could just be in it. But then the minute you come out of the blocks, there is a little bit of silence beforehand. The minute you come out, you can hear the other people. And lane 1's the worst. I think I very rarely was in lane 1. I usually would get seated.
Why is lane 1 the worst?
Well, in 300s, it's the worst because you're the farthest back. You're staggered. It's a staggered start. So you genuinely feel like you're chasing people down already, even though you know there's a reason for that curve, and that you are, when you come around on that backstretch, you're going to even up depending on what your speed is. I'm guessing
that was probably a lot your mentality too, though. Like I'm guessing some people really liked the chase and you did not.
No, I did not. Okay. I almost wanted to. I didn't want to. I was like, I eventually don't want to see you at all in my peripherals. Obviously, that's the goal, right? Yeah. But that's the scary thing too. Then you come to the straightaway, and there's no one in your peripherals, and you're thinking, who's coming up on me.
Yeah, you can't look back because
you can't look back, but you're like, is there someone coming up on me? And you just have to keep like charging.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Would you hear the crowd in those moments too? If like there was
the minute
like
you're on the straightaway? Oh, yeah.
Because like I know from covering track meets, especially when you get to like district state level where the talent gap closes a good bit, you could hear the crowd was really good at getting super loud if all of a sudden the end was going to be tight.
Yes.
Like, especially if it was a comeback situation. That's not always so much if it was like neck and neck the whole way. You could hear more of this like, oh crap roar coming when someone was kind of storming from behind. So like I'm wondering, did you hear that, or was that just something that didn't register in the moment? If you were ever that like in that situation of being chased, and no, did you ever hear the crowd like telling you someone's coming up behind you?
I never heard anyone specifically saying that, but sometimes you would hear more voices chiming in, so that's when you knew.
That's what I mean.
That it's going to be
just,
tight.
Like, kind of sense it.
Yeah, and you could sense it. But the other thing too was a lot of us as teammates, especially in college, there were 2 football players on the track team that were sprinters as well. There would be a clock where you could see the time.
Yeah.
And there was one meet. The record in the 100 hurdles at Clarion University was from 1980. It was like from the year I was born. I was like, I have to beat this record. And we were, I can't remember where we were in Ohio, but I was flying. And those hurdles, you clip your toe. That leg's not parallel and you clip it, you're going down. Like your body is hitting the ground if you're going that fast. And I clipped like the second to the last hurdle, and I literally did a forward dive and rolled into the last hurdle. And they were watching the time, and my coach even came up to me. She's like, you were about to demolish that record. They're like, you were going so fast. She's like, I don't think your feet were touching the ground. It just felt, because I felt so strong. And then I'm like, I have to run 3 more races. I have to run 2 relays in the 400. And I thought, how do I get that back for those 400 hurdles? The hard thing about 400 hurdles for me was they're so spread out. I like that, like quick, just boom, boom, just get it over with. The 300 and the 400 hurdles, yeah, you can count your steps. They usually tell you not to. Sometimes it's a good strategy to count from the blocks to the first one. But it's literally, you're just sprinting, and when you come to the hurdle, you just go over it. So you have to be able to go over with either leg. But on those curves, you want your inside leg. You want to go over with your left leg. So then you're counting steps. So you're constantly in practice, like checking your stride and like, how big's my stride going to be? I'm going to do 32 steps to the first hurdle or whatever it is. I don't even remember. It's just a lot. I start to think about that stuff, and I almost like, I wish that I could just get to the starting line and just...
Yeah.
I wish I could do it again, honestly. I would love to run. I'd really love to run the 4x4 again. I don't know why I want to run that race again.
Yeah, everyone hates the 400. It's like the worst race. Because you have to sprint, but
here's what I do love about, and I talked about this silence. I loved being on the backstretch in the 400 because I could hear my breath, and I would always talk to myself. I'd be like, and things I can't say on there, I would just really be I'm like, when you hit that, you better kick it into the next gear. When you hit that 200 meter, when you come around that, like, that's how I was talking to myself in my head. And I was like, you got this, keep pumping your arms, keep breathing, keep going, and I don't know. I think that's why I liked it, because I had a moment to get away from the crowd and there weren't any hurdles.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked it, because at that point I'd already done the hurdles and I was like, I don't have to jump over anything anymore. I could just go. So, yeah.
Well, good job as a host.
Yeah,
today.
thanks. Thank you for letting me join you today. And I have a lot more to learn, but thank you.
No, that's good.
And thank
I'm
you
glad we
for
got to do it.
Dominic for manning our soundboard.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic. The intern.
Yeah, rock and roll. All right, peace out.
See you guys next week.
Yeah.
We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.